Again, I think there's a concern or lack of concern for the cost of this legislation on the homeless. And I love when people say, I've got a great idea that's going to price you out of a home because the world is going to end in 12 years. But if the world is going to end in 12 years, wouldn't you change your own behavior? If this was a crisis, wouldn't you say, I better change the way I behave? I shouldn't focus on changing everybody else. I should change myself. So maybe instead of flying to Washington, I might take the train. And maybe instead of driving in a big Suburban, I might drive in a little Prius. Or if you're the socialist from the Senate who's running for the presidency, maybe you wouldn't ask the Hillary Clinton campaign to fly you on a private jet all over the country to campaign for her, all the while claiming the world is going to end in 12 years while you're spewing carbon all over the place in your private jet. Or maybe if you're the Speaker of the House, you might say, I'm not going to take that private jet to California because Speaker Paul Ryan, he took commercial air travel to Chicago and drove up to his place in Wisconsin. Speaker John Boehner, he too flew commercial. But the ones that now claim that we have a crisis in 12 years, they're the ones that take the SUVs and the private jets.
Madam Chair, I'm going to object.
If you really believe
to this is
really
becoming
believe
personal,
that global warming is happening,
I'm going to object
you would take
these questions as
you would take
pointing out specific names and becoming personal,
Mr.
and it's so off.
Madam Chair, this is my time.
Will the gentleman please? The time belongs to the gentleman from
Arkansas,
who has yielded to the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the point is that let's focus on ourselves. Let's focus on our families. Let's focus on our own party and the decisions that we make. And so what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And when we say we'll take private jets and SUVs, and then we want to pass a bill that says poor people are going to have a radical increased cost for their homes that may price them out of their home or price them out of their rental unit, I find that fundamentally unfair. And it concerns me when, again, I say this works for the rich who can take the Suburbans and the private planes. It works for them. But we're talking about the poorest among us who can't afford it. And again, lead by example. Take the train. Take a commercial flight. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman for the time, and I yield the time back to the chair.
Thank you very much. I move to strike the last.
We talk about cost. We're going to pay for this whether we pass a Green New Deal or not. Because as towns and cities go underwater, as wildfires ravage our communities, we are going to pay. And we are either going to decide if we're going to pay to react or if we're going to pay to be proactive. And what we know is that prevention, when you spend less money on prevention, you can prevent a lot of that damage from happening in the first place. So it's not a question of whether we're going to spend the money, because I'm very sad to say that the government knew that climate change was real starting as far back as 1989 when NASA was reporting this. And the private sector knew way back in the 1970s. So we had until around the time I was born to address this issue. I wish it didn't have to cost so much, but I'm going to turn 30 this year, and for the entire 30 years of my lifetime, we did not make substantial investments to prepare our entire country for what we knew was coming. So now it's coming all up at the end. It's like when we live our whole lives and we don't eat healthily and we don't move and we pursue unhealthy activities. And then at the end of our lives, our healthcare costs are very high. We have the choice to lower the cost now, because I can tell you the cost of pursuing a Green New Deal will be far less than the cost of not passing it. And with respect to our brothers and sisters and neighbors that are in agriculture, bring them to the table. Let's hold hearings. Let's add provisions. Let's amend the legislation to accommodate for the just transition and for the encouragement of those industries to grow. And I would also encourage to my colleague on the other side of the aisle that thinks we're trying to ban cows to actually read the resolution and understand that there's nothing to that effect in the legislation. And not only that, but we're trying to invest in these communities and our agricultural workers so that they can enjoy prosperity into the next century.